we're back.
Yes.
A change of location.
We're serious.
We're in the other. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Change of location.
We're in the other Running Wild house.
Right. Yes. The real Running Wild house. The sign is outside.
Yeah, right.
It says Running Wild.
Exactly. Okay. So we're going to continue with the history.
Pick up from where we were. Yeah.
Of Running Wild. Okay, you start.
No, we ended with
52.
52. And then the next one was Duel at the Mound.
Right.
Right.
So after the 52, while we were still making the 52, before we screened any of them, I planned on making a baseball feature film.
Do you know anything about baseball?
No. But I'd like to.
Well, there's one guy. He's an old baseball acquaintance.
I thought we agreed that it was best if you left that behind.
Who's it from?
I don't know.
You hungry?
No, I just ate.
Can I talk to her?
You can't force her to be with you.
So you were a ball player then?
Yeah. It's a duel. It's like two swordsmen or two gunmen.
I said leave! How dare you come into our home?
This game runs through your veins, Mel. I just know how to spot it.
It's infinite.
Duel at the Mound. I've always been interested in baseball, and I just decided I developed this story about these two retired baseball players who are continuing a sort of duel secretively as they're trying to move on from baseball. So we made that in April of 2014, just 2 months after we screened all of the 52. We did a big festival with the 52. I think we should mention that as well, where we showed all of them in one weekend, which was quite an event.
And how many people attended that?
It was hard to count them because there was a lot of people coming and going. But I think close to like 200 to 300 when it was all said and done. It was a little bit underwhelming just because we'd done something so massive that I still feel like that project deserves more attention than it's
gotten. And one day when you get time, probably should do another like you did, where you showed it on a weekend, because people flew in from out of town to see it. So, I mean, although you said it was a little bit underwhelming, but when I came and I saw all of them, there seemed to be crowds. I mean, the venue was always filled up. Yeah. And one of the things that they did, of course, was the area you had, which is almost across the street here. Yeah. I mean, the restaurants did very well. Oh yeah. Because they got so much business.
Oh yeah. People were eating and drinking. I mean, it was a fun event. Yeah. But I think that, like you said, this was climbing Everest.
Yes.
Right. You know what I mean? Yes. And it's like you come down from Everest and there's a group of 10 people clapping. Good work. Good work. Good work, man. So we moved on to Duel at the Mound.
But one of the things I should say, because we're going, it's almost like skipping from big stone to big stone. But a lot of little stones in between, because between all of this, you're still making short films. And, I mean, if you go on, Vimeo? Yeah. It's over 200.
Oh, it's crazy.
There's a lot of short
on YouTube,
films.
There's now more than 300 videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily, because here, it's just music videos, commercials, web series episodes. I mean, we did a whole web series every week about the making of the 52. Right. There's just so much content.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going. So, as I said, I just don't want people to think that you just go from feature to feature, but there's work in between. Oh, yeah. And with a limited crew, limited personnel, limited help, it's the same people doing it over and over, and then moving on to the feature as well.
Exactly.
It's and all across the board, no pay.
Right,
which
pretty
is
much.
Really,
Well, Duel at the Mound was actually our first feature with pay.
Okay.
Because what we did is we had an investor come in. It was the first time we had a true investor, which was a good move. It was a forward motion for the company, who put $5,000 in, and then we raised $5,000 through Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Again, we turned back to Kickstarter.
I remember I got paid.
Right.
Yes.
That's right. You did.
I got paid for acting.
I shouldn't have paid you. But yeah, I think I paid all of the main actors a day rate, a very small day rate, and the main crew was paid a day rate. We made the movie for $10,000, and we shot it in 9 days.
Wow.
I was superstitious about that because 9 is the baseball number, innings, right? So I had to be silly about that.
No, but I understand.
But it was a good project, and but I feel like even that film, making it, even before I made Duel, and especially when we screened it, to me it showed that we're just taking, even with the 52 and everything, perhaps as filmmakers we're growing, our craft is very much progressing, but I felt like our audience was just taking baby steps, that everything that we were showing wasn't really getting a big audience, and that's where I got the idea of Durant's and the specifically casting the Hollywood talent.
And let's talk about even the premiering of the films, because they were shown, and they were shown in premiere style.
Right. We basically premiered all of these first features at various theaters around Arizona, right? With cast and crew and the whole shebang.
And you usually played them for
only one night. Usually.
But there were times when they were carried over.
Right. With Detective's Lover, I think it played 3 weeks. Not 3 weeks solid, but 3 nights over the course of 3 weeks at Film Bar.
Filled up the house each time.
Right. Yeah, sold out each time.
And that's what, 80, 100, 150 people? I don't remember.
Right, it's 80 people.
Yeah,
but still, it was a good
there was
crowd.
Sitting, there were also people, it was standing room only because there were people sitting on the stairs and stuff like that, and there were people you had to turn away who didn't get tickets.
Well, I like small venues like that because it's intimate and
I think the experience is more closely felt because of the size of
Exactly. And then we've also worked a lot with Pollock Tempe Cinemas, which has been very open to us over the years. That's where the Big Something, that was our first premiere, was there, and then we came back there for The Men Rob the Bank and for Duel at the Mound. So, premieres are both painstaking experiences and also a lot of fun.
Yeah, and they're important because it gives a film, it announces that a film exists. And also gives it a sense of presence. That it's here and it's ready to join, the fraternity of film that is available at that time.
And we haven't, in all of these years, we haven't, to my memory, had a single film, really, at least a single feature play in a film festival. All of these premieres have been self-run. So
should we talk a little bit about our philosophy about film festivals?
Possibly.
People always want to know what film festival have you entered in, as though that's a total necessity or that legitimizes your picture. So go ahead.
Well, I think that film festivals are old-fashioned and also corrupt, for lack of a better word. When you submit your film to a film festival, you have no idea if it's really being watched. You're paying for the submission, but you don't know if they're watching your film or watching more than 2 minutes of your movie, putting your film in a stack. You really don't know if it's a qualitative competition or if there's sort of, if it has to do with the connections that people have to the festival. Obviously, nothing is really fair in life, right? So most of the films that get in could have bought their way in. I've learned over the years that some distribution companies actually buy their way into, to a festival, or festivals pay for this film to play there. You know what I mean? So there's so many aspects to why I don't think it's a good system.
That when you say, festivals pay, what they're paying out of is the money that you
we put in.
Pay to have them consider your picture. The other thing that I don't like about festivals is, one, okay, let's say you pay, and you're not talking about 5 or 10 or 15 or even 100 people paying. Sometimes they get 1,500 films, or
Right.
400, 500, whatever the number is. They get a fee for that. Obviously, they can't look at full films. So they have to give it, the 5-minute, 10-minute test where they look at 10 minutes of it and say no.
Right.
You know, like that. So then your film doesn't get selected, but you sent it. If the fee is, just to pick an easy number, is $100.
Right.
If you send it to 10 film festivals, you spent $1,000.
Right.
And there's no guarantee they're going to select your film to show. And even when they select it and show it, one, they charge an admission that you don't get anything back from. Two, there's no guarantee that you'll get a distributor, which is the main reason why you submitted to a film festival in the first
or
place.
Awards or some kind of attention out of that film festival.
But even the awards doesn't guarantee
No.
anything except some sort of ego inflation.
Right.
You know, and so that's why I don't.
It's
I don't believe in that.
mostly a vanity thing.
Right. Yes.
I also say it's old-fashioned because you see something because I think that in the past, something like the Phoenix Film Festival or the Scottsdale Film Festival, and I'm not just picking on locals, but they would show folks movies that they couldn't see elsewhere, right? But now you can find these movies online, right? It's very rare that you can't find some of these movies anywhere. You know what I'm saying? So I think it becomes progressively more out of fashion, and that these festivals should be showing more local work and celebrating local work. The percentage of Arizona films shown at the Phoenix Film Festival versus outsider films is very low. I think there's something wrong with that, because it should be informing the community about what's going on there in that city and boosting it up.
The other thing is that there's so many film festivals that, except for the big ones, Sundance and a few, of the others, it's now meaningless. Because, and every time you see some film you never heard of, he'll tell you, well, it won this award at this little film festival, that nobody ever heard of, because we could create a film festival if we want in the backyard here, and give an award too. It doesn't mean anything, so that's why I say, philosophically, I have no interest in film festivals whatsoever.
Well, the mini film festival I'm doing, I'm calling it a showcase, but it really is sort of a festival in Mississippi. Soon in September. There's no submission fee. Okay? The only requirement, if we choose your film, is you have to be there. That's the only thing. And it's only for locals. It's only for Mississippi filmmakers, right? So I'm trying something that I consider to be an alternative, because I'm like, this submission fee is bullshit. However, and some filmmakers have declined, they don't want to be, because they say they won't be there. And I said, if I'm going to show your movie, you have to be present, you have to connect with the audience, because I'm trying to create an environment where they can network and expose the audience to their work. So, anyway.
Okay, so let's go back to...
So, we
Duel and the Mound.
we made that, and then we're working on Durant.
Write me a check for $1,650.
What for?
Bet your papers again, Jack.
Papers don't write about guys like me, man.
Mafia. Money.
No, please. He said that nothing would happen to me. No.
already did a episode where we covered
most
of the stuff about Durant. What do you think we haven't covered?
It seems like we covered virtually everything, but let's just give a quick overview.
Right.
You know, you went through a number of people. You got finally Tom Sizemore to sign on. In spite of the fact that it was the biggest budget that we've ever had, it was still minuscule to what you wanted to achieve. One of the things that helped was the fact that you got local merchants to help with the catering. It was the first time you actually had to build a set. Which was...
That was fun.
Yes, and work. Again, it's all work.
A lot of firsts were done there. First time we ever got the, let's just say a $200,000 budget is what it was made for. And I would argue that the film made in LA would have cost $1 million. I really think that that's true. You know what I mean? Not made with our resources and our cunning, it would have cost $1 million. Working with Hollywood talent, Tom Sizemore, Peter Bogdanovich, John Garais, Michelle Stafford, all those. And then building a set and shooting in a studio environment, not on location, was really interesting. I think those are the main three things.
One of the things that I was impressed with was the matching the set to the real Durants. The one day I came on thing when I had that little, my cameo, as it were. What I did was, with a friend, we actually went to Durant's, the restaurant, to see how closely it matched.
After you were done
shooting.
shooting.
After we were finished shooting, because we were on the set, and it matched except for the photographs on the wall, because your film takes place in the 60s, your story, and we're in the 2000s. And so they changed the photographs, but everything else was the same.
Well, there's so many things that are different, but it shows you that as long as you get it close, people won't notice. But even this weekend, when we showed Durant's for probably the last time theatrically that it will play, and even people in the audience said, "You shot at Durant's," and I said no, and they did not believe me. So that's a big compliment to our entire team and our production designer Rachel for doing that. I think what we haven't talked about is, I can't remember where we left off in our conversation, but again with the release of Durant's, it's always difficult once you've made this movie. What do you do with it? Do you submit it to festivals? Do you put it online? We didn't have a good distribution offer domestically, so I again said I want to do this self-distribution thing, but on a bigger scale, not just a premiere. Theatrical run. We got it played by Harkins in town for 2 weeks, and then Tempe Cinemas played it for a week, which a 3-week run was another big achievement and step forward for us. And then it played, so far it's played in 23 theaters around the country, including those. And I went on this giant road trip around the country to all of these theaters with my dog Bandit, and which was insane, But that of course came after we made Porches and Private Eyes. So all of this stuff is sort of blinging together. The other thing I think that a lot of people don't realize is you're never done with a movie, You want to say I'm done with it. If you're an independent filmmaker, if you're a studio filmmaker, done, hand it over,
and you move on.
But with an independent filmmaker, we are still messing with not only Durant's, but in some ways trying to figure out what to do with Duel at the Mound and some of these other pictures, moving through stages of distribution. You know what I mean?
Well, what's interesting is you're saying that, it reminds me of the African-American filmmaker, the pioneer really, Oscar Micheaux. That's how he distributed his films, because he couldn't get them in theaters really, and so he went in his car, and he would take them, and what he convinced a lot of the segregated theaters was that if they played the film at their least popular time, they would get a black audience that would come in, and so these theaters that would never consider a black movie would take it and play this once, and he'd actually stay there and count the house because he was getting, 30% of the ticket price, you see, like this.
That's
and
intriguing.
So the point I'm making is that when you have a film and you can't go the traditional route with it, you have to be inventive and innovative in some way to make it happen, to get it to an audience, because there's no point in making a film that you'll only be yeah, your friends will watch.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so especially something where there's a big investment like
exactly.
Durant had. So yeah.
Yeah. So that was quite a process.
Okay.
And then to me, what we've most recently done, making Porches and Private Eyes in Mississippi, our first feature made outside of Arizona,
right,
has to do with what I see as the future of the company.
Brookhaven, a home seeker's paradise.
Morning, Miss Ann.
Where's Jimmy?
He hasn't shown up yet.
And a man has a right to take off when he wants to.
Are you leaving us, Mr. Preston?
Who told you that?
What if he's been murdered?
Who would want to kill Jimmy?
Paul West. New to Brookhaven?
Already feels like home.
We need to break into his house.
We?
While Paul's distracted, I'm gonna look around and collect as much evidence as I can to prove he's guilty.
But what do I have to do? Hi, I'm Patsy Lynn from the Brookhaven Welcoming Committee, and you must be Paul West.
You don't think that he
killed Jimmy for the house?
Can I help you, ma'am?
This might sound a little strange.
I'm used to weird stuff around here.
I didn't think you'd check on criminal cases.
Only ones that interest me. No stranger kills an old man in our town and gets away with it.
You knew this whole time?
Jenny, I need some porch time.
Patsy, no gossip on Sundays, we promised.
Who said anything about gossip?
All rise. Court is now in session.
You found him?
Rest assured I will. Well, aren't you gonna figure out what's going on?
My job, not yours. Now I expect you to mind your own business, lady.
Don't worry, it's not poison.
What are we gonna do?
Hide! I'm intrigued.
That's just the first act.
Well, what happens?
You'll find out.
Meaning that, I have connections, family connections to Mississippi, and I've long been going there and created several short films there. And then finally the idea of creating something local, like the stuff we've done in Arizona, not just set here for the heck of it, but really set here. You know what I mean? Really set in Mississippi that incorporates the businesses, the people, my experiences there. The writing came out of all of those things, and making that
and your
film,
cast,
right, and all cast locally,
and your crew.
right, and a lot of the crew, but a lot of us came from Arizona, and we had a really exciting experience there, and the community really wrapped themselves around us and were very supportive, and it showed me personally that even though our base will probably always be Phoenix, we can't just be Arizona filmmakers. That what we're doing, I think, is bigger than that, and that it needs in the next 5 years to expand outside of Arizona, and we need to start little pockets of running wild around the country. Not just in Mississippi the first, but I'd like to do some in Colorado and some of the places that I saw around the country on my road trip where I think are sort of have the right culture for making movies, and not always the most obvious places. Something like something like there's places in Maine where I'd like to start it, or instead of Chicago, I would do it in Detroit. Instead
and
of Nashville.
One of the interesting things is that, to go back to Porches and Private Eyes, is based on a story you heard there.
Right.
So it's not like you took a story from elsewhere.
No.
And then said it would fit Mississippi. You took a story that was sitting there.
Right.
And I remember when you told me about the story somewhat, and then you developed the screenplay out of it.
And the same thing is cooking in my brain for something like Detroit, where I was there. I started to hear all of these local stories, myths and things. So why is no one making this, right? And I'd like to go there and develop that and see what could happen. So that's one of the major directions I want to take the company, is for it to change from just Arizona to developing local cinema around the U.S. Because when you think about the last 100 years of making movies in the United States, with exceptions like John Sayles, a lot of it is just LA and New York. Right. There are exceptions, of course, right? But that's the rule. And so I think that it's sort of very underdeveloped, and that it would be interesting to see stories in cinema start to come out from places in the country that we've never seen it.
Right. And one of the things that is that even, as you say, the local filmmakers like John Sayles and people like that making films within, he makes it in New Jersey, for instance, and what's the filmmaker who did Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead? Romero, he makes them in Philadelphia, things like that. But they're not telling Philly stories. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And Sayles is telling the story of the United States. Right. And so those are wonderful films, but except for probably one, I don't really know that much about New Jersey. Right. Or its myths, etc. Because he's covering something else. Right. You know, where what we're talking about is something different. It's getting stories out of that area. Right. And telling those stories. You know, because that's what art really does. It reflects its time at a certain period. Yeah. Like that. And so that I think is very, very interesting. Yeah.
So that's what I see as one of the main future directions.
And again, we go back to the quote we mentioned last time
about with Faulkner.
Yes, that what you discover is your own postage stamp, as universal resonances, and you could plumb that forever and never ever really get to the bottom or find its limits. Right. You know?
And so some people have asked me, "Are you leaving Arizona?" And I have 20 possible movies to make in Arizona, so I have no intention of leaving. But I think it's good to expand. You know what I mean, and to constantly be growing.
And that leads us to the next comment I want to make, a topic I want to talk about, is you say you have so many stories you want to tell, or films you want to make about Arizona and stuff, and the Hollywood system, because they pay for everything, they have this incredible backlog of screenplays that, for one reason or another, they either not green light or whatever, and it just sits there. We're in the opposite position. We have films that we actively want to make, but
we don't have the budget.
We don't have the budget, and so that's one of the things I want to talk about. But before we do that, let's talk about your gig for hire, your job for hire.
Oh, that's right. We skipped it.
Yes.
One interesting thing that happened with Running Wild between Duel at the Mound and Durant's is for the first time we were hired to make a feature film. And it was called Recession Road at the time. And we were hired by a local actor and producer with a script that he wrote to make this bare knuckle boxing movie that was strongly inspired by the movie Hard Times with Charles Bronson. I got the name of that. That's Hard Times, right?
Yes, it was.
Anyway, so that was an interesting process. I think, first of all, the end result of that was that in post-production on that film, we stepped away / it was taken away from us, and the project went on its own and was cut, and even parts of it reshot by a different director and released under a different title. So, but it was an interesting experience because...
So you had what the studios used to publicly refer to as artistic differences.
Right, exactly. Creative differences like you see mostly nowadays. These two people have parted ways because of creative differences.
You don't have to be a big company for that kind of thing to happen. That in one-on-one, in a small, limited, low-budget circumstance, that can happen too.
Well, and I think that almost everything that happens to a big studio has happened to us over the last 6 years. In some form, maybe on a smaller scale.
Right.
But that's another thing recently to me that's sort of, it's a mindset change. For me, 5, 6 years in, whereas before I saw us as a company, right? Now I'm starting to see us as a studio. And what I'm saying by that is that's again has to do with this expansion outside of Arizona, because not only are we producing, or not only am I directing features, but now I'm starting to produce features for Alex Cox, like this movie Tombstone Rashomon, and we're distributing our own features. And on a bigger scale, I'm producing a movie in Colorado, a kung fu movie. I'm producing Navid's first feature, right? It's starting to get bigger, and I'm starting to see that in more of, I'd like to see it develop as more of a movie studio.
And one of the interesting things about that
company.
is that other people are directing besides you.
Right.
So that's what, because it frequently can just seem like it's your captain in the ship and you cover everything.
Right.
But Navid is directing his own, and other people will be
and seeking new directors.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's
and new writers too.
Yeah, and that's one thing that people don't necessarily realize is that we're open to that. It's not just about me directing a film. And also, like the Recession Road thing, even though that went south, we're very open to projects being brought to us. However, those projects need to be real, so to speak. You know what I mean? They need to be ready to go. But we're open as doing director for hire, production company for hire type work. A lot of lessons were learned on that one about what to do and what not to do for that in the future. But it's something that I'd like to do because I admire the directors like Cortez and all of these guys from the old days. These were not so-called auteurs, so to speak. You know what I mean? They put their stamp on the films, but they were working for the studios. So I'd like to do that kind of work as well and develop my craft in that way. So what else should we discuss, or is that it?
No, one of the things I wanted to talk about, because I mentioned it earlier, is we talk about long-term goal, but now I'd love to talk about a wish thing.
A wish list.
Where you say, well, not a wish list, but you say, if you could wave a magic wand and make one wish come true in relation to Running Wild and what it wants, what would you wish for?
I think personally for me, it would be to have enough funding or enough, at least, or potentially enough profit made on our films to sustain a full-time team. Right now, it is only, Navid and I who are full-time. And of course, you're full-time, but you're pretty much full-time retired. Right? Exactly. Yes. You're a full-time inspiration, right? Is what we'll say. But when you look at the breadth of what we've created, and then you say, now take 4 or 5 of the team members, because we are a team, and make them full-time. Imagine what would be possible. I mean, it's just exponential in terms of the growth.
And we're not talking Hollywood salaries.
No,
we're talking about
I'm just talking
a living,
decent salaries, enough to live.
Yes.
None of us are extravagant in our living. Not a single one of us. We just need to be able to survive. And I think if I could take people like Katie, who is a new member of our team, a producer, or Bill, Gary, James, and say, let's be full. Now you're full time, right? We would be able to accomplish just something
You'd be able to function on a regular basis without having to worry about a whole lot of things that have nothing to do with the creative process.
Even if someone came in and said, here's enough to do that for a year, and here's a space to work in together every day. Within that year, I think we would have established ourselves so much that we wouldn't need the help anymore. You know what I'm saying? Because all of us could be working on really creating something wonderful. So that would be my wish. What would your wish be?
Well, it's in the same ballpark, really, that you had enough of a cushion, financial cushion, that would allow you to move from one project to another without, as I said, worrying about how to raise the money, putting all that energy in that direction, because in spite of all the equipment that is available and stuff, film is still on the ground floor an expensive proposition. And again, I say I'm not talking about the Hollywood salaries where one actor gets $20 million a picture. We're just talking about being able to go out and make a film for $100,000. To raise just that in our world, that's a lot of money, a lot of energy, and almost impossible. And that's what I would wish for. And sometimes I even play the Powerball lottery, hoping
right.
That maybe something will come and we could do that. So anyway, that's the Running Wild story as far as I can see right now. The future projects involve, you mentioned one or two. You have, now the other one from Mississippi is the one I just read.
On the Seventh Day.
Right, yes.
Which is one that will hopefully be the follow-up to Porches and Private Eyes.
Yes.
And hopefully be done for around the Durant's budget, is what I'd like. And it's about a preacher's wife who runs into her look-alike and decides to hire this woman to impersonate her in church every Sunday. So it's
again, it's based on a story.
It's based on
a true story.
A true story, not from Mississippi, but from the South. So I feel like it's related. You know, it fits in that general Southern. I believe it was Alabama.
Oh, really?
I
thought it was Mississippi.
But I thought that, having seen it and spent time in Brookhaven, that it was easily that it would relate to the general Southern culture. And The Bride of Violence, which is a horror film, which we basically have to get done for whatever budget we can get done because we're under a time restriction. It's based on a Lawrence Block short story, and we only have so much time until the option runs out. So we have to.
And he was rather generous about allowing you to do that.
And we've been kicking that around for a while. It's gone through several drafts, different writers.
And now you've shot sort of a teaser trailer for it. And you have a lovely poster. I love the poster.
That's good.
Yeah, like that. And so that you're hoping to do within what?
I'm going to do it in February or March.
Oh, okay. So it's
basically I have to do it. I told everybody I have to do it, even if it ends up just being me in the woods with a camera, Blair Witch style. You know what I mean? No matter what, this film has to happen. But the next 3 months, Don't Come Around Here is the one Naveed's doing, and Curse of the Dragon Sword is the kung fu movie we're doing in Colorado.
Yes.
So and then of course Valley of Shadows is our next big Phoenix movie, which is about Don Bowles. But if you look at the we have a backlog of screenplays. We have 8 Westerns, I believe, that have been written so far for our 12 Westerns project. I have a lot of Phoenix films that have been written, and now we're starting to get projects that actually could be done anywhere. So there's a lot of projects on our plate.
And somewhere along the way, most of them are going to get done.
Right.
But the effort is to find a way.
Right, exactly. Before we stop, I'm going to put you on the spot because we haven't talked about one of your recent projects.
Which one?
That's My Desire. So you got to talk about one of your projects.
Well, first of all, it's already shot.
Right.
And I was checking with Naveed last week as to where the editing process is. And so once I see the finished product, and again, it's one of my films that it's done in a different style from the general, traditional, dialogue, exchange, give and take kind of thing. And so I don't know what to say about it until it's finished.
Right. It's hard to say.
So I'd like to get it finished first, and then from there start figuring out how I'm going to get it to an audience, what venues I'm going to use, and how I'm going to try.
Right.
So I can't answer any questions now until the product is finished.
I'm excited because I'm the main star.
Yes, the star of it.
I'm teasing.
Yes.
I'm one of the 3 actors in it.
Yes.
But that's why I'm excited about it.
So I am too, and so that's what I'm waiting for, is for the, and the timeline I was given is probably November, because you guys are going to be away until practically November.
Right.
And so I was told that some editing will be done while you're gone, and then we have music to get on it, color correction, sound stuff, and that finally a finished product will probably be somewhere just before Thanksgiving.
Right.
Which
that'd be nice.
Yeah, that would be very nice. And then from there, I could look at what we've got and start figuring out, like Hollywood would do, saying what's the potential audience for this picture, and how do we get to them via the internet, via whatever exposure, just showing it in a theater, etc.
Good.
Yeah.
Cool. If you've made it this far, I want to say that you were truly a devoted.
Oh, that's amazing. Yes.
Running Wild follower, and Thank you.
Yes,
and
thank you.
And like you said, we'll adopt your idea of doing this every year and catching up in the next year's goals and following up on the projects that we've talked about and the ones that are coming up.
Right, yes.
So,
I do.
Good luck to you.
Yes.